It's new at 10, John Brown University introducing a new professional flight degree program. It is the second of its kind in the state, the first in our area, where students can get a bachelor's degree and get their pilot's license as well. 5 News reporter Lauren Spencer tells us how this will benefit the region.
I've always liked the prospect of flying. It's always been so cool.
Nathan Burris has dreams of becoming a pilot.
Recently, I was able to go up in a plane and the pilot let me take over the controls for a bit.
Now he can do this at his dream school, JBU.
So what this enables them to do is to have full flight training to become pilots, all the certifications that they need, but also to get a BA degree, which really helps them as they look to get for new jobs as pilots.
They've partnered with Aero, which is a Springdale-based flight school. Students will get a business degree along with flight and ground instruction.
Well, there's a critical need for pilots around the country, and we have a lot of interest in flight here in Northwest Arkansas.
President and CEO of Aero, Cameron McCarran, says students usually have to go out of state to get this kind of education.
And if they want to become a professional pilot with a college degree, now they don't have to leave the region to have to do that. We really feel like this is going to add something very unique to high school students, to college students, to somebody that wants to make a professional career change that lives in our area.
JBU President Dr. Chip Pollard says it's actually not the first time the school has had an aviation program. The first was in 1938.
We had a little airstrip out in Siloam Springs, and then we trained about 175 pilots for the war effort.
While Nathan is only 15, he says he's looking forward to, in a few years, applying for the program and taking to the skies.
And I'm considering going into private flight to rack up my hours, and then in the future I'm considering doing commercial flight for a big company.
In Springdale, covering news where you live, Lauren Spencer, 5 News.
JBU says it'll take up to 20 students in the program this coming fall. A Clarksville man says he is guilty of a deadly shooting. Johnson County Sheriff's Office says Mark Gonzalez originally told them he shot Joseph Middleton in self-defense last year after he came at him with an axe. Another witness later told police that they did not see an axe in the attack. Gonzalez changed his plea to guilty and got a 15-year prison term. An Amber Alert was called off for a missing teen from Wisconsin after she was found safe and sound. Investigators say she was with Gary Day, a 40-year-old man from Lonoke County, Arkansas. Police found them together in Nebraska. They say he is now in custody and the victim is being reunited with her family. It was another rough day on Wall Street as stock prices continued to fall after the White House announced trade tariffs this week. The Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P all saw massive drops today amid fears about what might happen next. In total, more than $2 trillion in market value was wiped out today. Erica Brown reports from the White House, where the president worked to assure Americans that everything is going to work out.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom.
President Trump remained optimistic after his sweeping new tariffs sparked the stock market's worst single-day sell-off since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is.
The White House expects the tariffs will balance a trade deficit President Trump labeled a national emergency. But economists warn the cost of tariffs will ultimately fall on American consumers.
The president's trade policy is going to do a lot of economic damage. It's going to reduce the income of households. It's going to reduce the purchasing power of wages. It's going to increase unemployment.
Top Democrats slammed the president's trade policy.
He's walking us into the dumbest and most avoidable recession probably in history.
A 10% tariff on all U.S. imports is set to take effect this weekend. That's on top of reciprocal tariffs slated for next week. And Thursday, the Trump administration imposed a 25% tariff on foreign-made cars and auto parts, sparking backlash from trade partners. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled retaliatory tariffs against the U.S.
By matching the U.S. approach with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
And car maker Stellantis announced it will be pausing production at its plants in Canada and Mexico as it assesses the impact of the new tariffs. Erica Brown, CBS News, the White House.
This week's tariff announcement comes after months of uncertainty about what the White House's plan would look like. Financial advisors we spoke to today say the sell-off was likely just Wall Street's initial reaction to that news, and most people don't need to make any quick decisions.
I encourage everyone to start with the assumption you don't need to do anything. We don't want to make reactive kind of decisions in these times, but reevaluate and just see where you're at. And if you do make decisions or changes, try to make subtle adjustments and don't make any large knee-jerk reactions one way or the other.
Today's stock market slide was the largest since the pandemic crashed the economy in 2020. Another deadline is fast approaching for the social media site TikTok. The new bidder also entered the picture today, Amazon. The deadline for the app to change its ownership is Saturday. CBS News confirmed today that Amazon showed last-minute interest in buying the app, joining other contenders, including Blackstone and Oracle. The President spoke to reporters today on Air Force One and says he expects tariff relief for China could play into getting a deal approved.
For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have the situation with TikTok where China will probably say we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well in the first administration, as you saw, but now we're taking it to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation.
Congress passed a law last year to force the sale of TikTok, upheld by the Supreme Court. President Trump delayed its enforcement, though, to allow more time to work out a buyer. 3 days and 3 no votes. For the third time, Arkansas lawmakers have opposed an appropriations bill concerning the Franklin County Prison. It comes as the Board of Corrections continues to move forward with their plans for the 3,000-bed facility. This morning, the board unanimously approved the preliminary schedule for approving contractors and the request for proposals for a general contractor for the new prison. That request for proposal details the required guidelines contractors interested in bidding for the new prison must meet. It's important to note Veneer Construction has been confirmed as the managing contractor for the entire project, but other smaller contractors for design and engineering can also apply for specific roles. The board also agreed that any change to plans that would increase costs by $250,000 in the budget would need to be pre-approved and voted on by the board.
Not just going to get, well, the budget is X dollars. Here's the finished product, please approve. And it's this much below or above whatever the project budget is. What you're going to get is these things that are funneling up that affect a piece of the design process. And that is where then you as the board will say, okay, tell us what went into this. Here's what anything amounts to going into this part of the project. And then at the end, you'll have the full design.
The approved schedule says contractors can begin submitting those proposals on April 8th. They also confirmed the Board of Corrections for the new facility will include a representative from the governor's office and the Board of Corrections.